Hello and welcome to Adda with Kalyan and today's edition. Last week we'd met some professional chefs and we spoke about their travels across India. This time we've got an interesting range of people. If we had professional chefs last time, we've got some very exciting home chefs who've been rocking the eating out scene in Mumbai. For a long time in Mumbai, the focus on the eating out scene was on Asian restaurants, European restaurants, and there was very little happening on the Indian regional food. Suddenly all of this came to a change when there was this flurry of home chefs coming in and they were offering like Assamese food, Parsi food, Bohri food, Ethiopian food, Bihari food which you would not get in the restaurants. Suddenly you had them offering them, and in different formats. So there were some people who were doing pop-up kitchens at home, some people holding pop-up restaurant events in bookshops, some were sort of tying up with internet delivery services and sending food home, and they were like reaching out very interesting cuisine to the food lovers of Mumbai, and everyone was just lapping it up. So we've got some of the most prominent faces on the Mumbai home chef circuit with us today, and we're going to talk to them about their experiences. Starting with us, we've got a mother and son duo. We've got Nafisa auntie, who does some great Bohri food, and the Bohris are one of the original communities of Mumbai, and her son Munaf, who sort of thought of this and said that why don't I share my mother's food with folks outside as well. So thanks to his noble idea, we have some great pop-ups happening over there, and it's called the Bohri Kitchen. We've got Gitika Saikia, who was one of the earliest in the pop-up movement, and in her pop-ups you will not only get chicken, but you could get silkworms also. In fact, I remember I had gone to one of her earliest pop-ups where there were just 3 of us, and now it's impossible to get a seat in her pop-ups, and that's really been a fascinating journey. We have with us also Perzen, known as the Bawi Bride. She initially started her blog called the Bawi Bride, where she used to chronicle Parsi recipes and which she wanted to share with the world. Since then she started doing pop-ups, then she opened a home catering service, decided it was time to throw off her job and get into this full time, and she's reaching Parsi food to parts of Mumbai where Parsi food had never reached before. A very, very enterprising and bubbly person to speak to as well. And then we have Sneha, who again, like Perzen, chucked her corporate job and decided to show the people of Mumbai that there's a lot more to South Indian food than idli and dosas, and she brings out her native Keralite food, and you've got a range of exciting vegetarian food as well as non-veg food, and she does pop-ups all over Mumbai, sometimes in restaurants, sometimes in art cafes, sometimes in bookshops. Sometimes you get a chair to sit on them, sometimes you do it the traditional way where you sit down on the floor. Each of them offers you like some really novel experiences, and what diners have been really looking for, because you've not been getting this in Mumbai. So you know, talking of novel experiences, Gitika, I was just wondering that when people go to your pop-ups and they come across goose meat, and then they come across silkworms, and then they come across ant eggs, how do they react? I mean, is that what they're expecting? Do they get put off? It's very different from what's available.
Yes, actually they don't get put off, I would say. It's actually because of them, the adventurous lot who are always trying to know or dying to try out new things. That's when that also gives me a kick to get these things, these exotic things which are becoming, you know, almost exotic in Assam to Bombay.
Yeah.
So that's actually quite interesting, and when I see them actually, you know, going and then actually running to have one silkworm, and then the expression on the face is like, wow, it's like, it serves my purpose of getting or taking the trouble of getting all the way from Assam. I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I remember my expression of having my first silkworm was caught famously on camera. It's a bit like kosha, like what we call kosha in Bengali, like skin, like something, where it's like interesting. I like the goose more though. I think the silkworm was a nice way of breaking it. But I really think it's really commendable also the way you've been an ambassador for Assamese cooking and Northeastern cooking in Mumbai, and Mumbai being the melting pot of cultures, we definitely need more of that. So I think that's great. Sneha, I'm going to come to you next, and I hope thank you for joining us. And you know, what I was wondering is that you had like a very thriving corporate career, and what gave you the confidence to sort of get into this home chef movement, to organize pop-ups of your own? Why did you feel, what made you think that there's a market for this? What really encouraged you to get into this?
When I started a year ago, Kalyan, honestly, I wasn't sure if there is a market for something like this because I'd never been for a pop-up meal per se. I've done something like this abroad and I've eaten and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, but like never in India. This was just a fun way to, you know, sort of break the stereotype of how Kerala food is idli, dosa, and just I was tired of people telling me that sambar should be sweet. So maybe in a small way, this was an attempt to change the world, like literally one sambar at a time. It is also the idea to do something like this is to bring food from homes of people you know, like family, friends, in-laws, everybody. There is so much food within our households that just does not get onto the plates of people at a restaurant. It simply doesn't, but which is outstanding just because maybe it is simpler or maybe it is not fancy or anything like that, but it is great food and it has survived for generations. So I just wanted to bring back what we had stopped eating. Like that's precisely what I wanted to do. And quitting my job, I think 2 months into doing this, it was a lot easier to make that decision because this was so much more fun. Yeah, like I really get to eat for a living.
Yeah, I think one thing which really characterizes all these meets is fun. And what I found really exciting, Sneha, is that you took inspiration in international markets because you saw a trend which is happening abroad, and you used that to sort of revive lost traditions in a way. And because keep in mind that Mumbai does have a history of Keralite restaurants. If you go to South Mumbai and a bit in Mahim and Chembur and stuff like that, but what you've done is you've brought it to a larger audience which often wouldn't have access to that, and I think that's a great job, so kudos to you. Coming to you, Perzen, and you must be joining us from your lovely villa in Malcolm Bagh, which you've taken up. And I was sort of taking up from the thing which Sneha's done, which is just as Keralite restaurants are not new to Mumbai, nor are Parsi restaurants. I mean, you have Irani cafes, you have Parsi restaurants, but what's happening is that with the city spreading, a lot of us don't go to these places anymore. And that's where I thought that your pop-up gives an interesting opportunity. But what I'd like to know is that how would going to your pop-up be different from my going for a meal at Jimmy Boy or Military Cafe or Britannia? I mean, what's the plus that I can expect when I'm eating your food at your home?
So I think basically one of the key things for me when I'm eating food is, you know, it's not just about the food, it's about the stories around the food, which is the most interesting part for me. So, I mean, that's one of the big pluses of going to any sort of pop-up, but especially with me, you know, because I revolve around doing a lot of dishes which are very special to me and my family. So, you know, in one of my pop-ups, we've got my grandmom's prawn curry, or we've got like keema kebabs the way my grandfather used to make it. And, you know, so you get to share your recipes and your stories with other people, which is, I think, something more special, and it just makes the whole experience more homely and makes it more of an experience than just sort of, you know, sitting and having a plate of dansak. And coming to dansak also, you know, most of these Irani cafes you go to, there's only like set things you'll get, like and that was one of the key reasons why I wanted to do the pop-ups, because to sort of share that, you know, there is life beyond dansak.
Yeah, I was just coming to that, like Parsi food beyond dansak. Talking of homely experience like Munaf and Nafisa auntie, like what made you feel this urge to sort of share what you've been eating on your dining tables at home with like a group of strangers? And was there any wariness about getting people into your own homes?
What made us do this? So I'm that son who's been taking his mom's dabba to school, okay, to office forever. I think it's that day when I took it to office, and one of my colleagues was caught on camera licking the kaju chicken out of this Tupperware ka dabba we had taken. Yeah. Okay, it's around that time that we were like, chalo, let's try it out. Let's try to monetize this, because my mother's very ambitious. Like probably most middle class housewives these days. So then, as an experiment, I sent an email out to 30 people, 30 of my friends, and 2 hours later, some lady I've never spoken to before calls me up and says, hey, we want to come for the Bohri kitchen, is it a restaurant? And I was like, no, I'm inviting you to my house, are you willing to pay food, pay money for this food? And she said, yeah, and she came, and she with 6 of her friends came. And I think it's my mother's reaction to the feedback they gave that really kind of sealed the deal for us.
And in fact, it helped influence my husband also. My husband would always say, "Okay, I wouldn't want to charge anyone
people.
to feed them, So.
But did you feel nervous cooking for strangers, Auntie?
No, I love cooking, and it has always been my passion to cook. So it wasn't any different, like.
So one question which I want to throw to the panel and is that when people are eating out and they're spending a certain amount of money, there's certain expectations they have when they go to a restaurant in terms of seating, the air conditioning, the wait staff and so on, versus when you're going to someone's home when none of this is under control. So how do people react to that, eating in a non-restaurant setting? Because they're putting good money over there. I mean, your pop-ups range for most of you around 2,000 to 2,000, which is how much you'd pay per head in a restaurant. So how do people react to that? Anyone?
So I'll chime in. The way I see this from a marketing point of view, when a customer takes that decision, okay, a potential guest decides to come, for him 1,500 to 2,500 is a lot of money per seat. When he's taking that decision, you have to be careful that from a brand's point of view, you come across as a professional brand. Okay, from when it comes to your logo, when it comes to your photography, when it comes to your copy, you need to be perceived as a brand that's capable of delivering the same experience as any restaurant out there.
So I think this is an interesting learning for home chefs, that while you are sort of putting your food out there, it's not just your food which will do the talking, but it's also the way the packaging is done, because that's also pretty important. Sneha, any interesting anecdotes from the people who've dropped in at your house in terms of, or to your pop-ups in terms of how they've reacted to the food?
I think for people, when they come to my house, they have to literally, unlearn everything that they know about dining in, because I'm going to make you sit on the floor, eat on a banana leaf with your hands. That by itself is a challenge for most people. I mean, most of us, even though we're Indians, do not eat with hands anymore. So this is an exciting thing for them to do. And a lot of them actually enjoy it. Like, I mean, they have preconceived notions about what it will be like to sit on the floor and, eat with your hands, eat on a banana leaf. Simple things like, will the curry flow off? Like, is a valid fear that they come with. But I don't think anybody's ever gotten up to say that, I don't think I'll want to eat on a banana leaf ever again. And that precisely is why we continue doing this, which makes it exciting, because you're not just signing up to go eat a meal. Like Perzen said, it's about the story, it's about the culture. And with a home chef, that's what you're trying to do, because we have the benefit of not having to match up to numbers and seats just to meet a certain requirement. Your reasons to do these are completely different from a restaurant. So it also gives you that leeway to sort of go above and beyond what could be a regular offering at a restaurant.
So guys, is this, I mean, see, one is the passion which drives you in terms of wanting to feed people, tell the stories about your own culture and share that. But when you're also doing it day in and day out and for a group of strangers, after a while it also has to be financially viable and inspiring as well. So what's your experience been? Do you think it's sort of working out in terms of monies? Are you happy with the way the market is growing?
I think
Gitika,
for me, the best reward I get, not from the monetary point of view, the joy, the excitement that you see in people's face when, for example, the other day when a group had come and I was serving them duck meat. So they were all with spoons, and I said, forget the spoons, because we will not be able to have the duck meat because it's very chewy. So they were so happy. Yes, we will do the way as you do. I mean, as the way you say how it is to be had and all. So I guess the excitement is nothing compared to the money that you're actually looking at.
I mean, that satisfaction is a lot more.
Yeah, satisfaction is a lot more. It's like
but for someone who's wanting to make money, does that work out? Munaf, you have a point?
I'll definitely chime in over here.
Yeah.
So I get this question a lot. See, my mother, she does this out of passion. She does it out of love for the food, for the guests, for acknowledgement. But I'm an MBA who's trying to create a business model out of this entire thing. The way I see it, and I would say this for any potential home diner out there, there are so many ways to generate scalable revenue from this. Inviting people home, okay, and the limited seats and the limited capacity you have might not be very scalable, but you create a brand out of this. I mean, look at all of us. Okay, I have the Bohri kitchen. Okay, she has Gitika's Pakhghor, there's Poppaddum, there's Bawi Bride. These have turned into brands, and brands are scalable. You can go into retail, you can go into home delivery, you can go into takeaway. Some of us might even open restaurants. Okay, that's how powerful these brands are turning into.
So there is a potential to go ahead, and I think these are really exciting times for all of us in food to be in, and there are a lot of opportunities about that. And you know, talking of exciting times in the new world, I had a question for you, Perzen. You are doing food in the Parsi area, and that's where there are established restaurants, and people have very strong point of views in terms of what it should be. I mean, there are examples of restaurants like Jamjoji which had come up, which got a lot of flack saying that, oh, it's not traditional enough and stuff like that. So how's the Parsi community looking at your attempts to sort of do things like Sali Paridu cupcakes and Laganu patio pizzas and all the things which you're doing?
So I think, I mean, there's two things, you know, primarily with Bawi Bride, we've actually tried to educate like the non-Parsi about Parsi food. And like I was saying, you know, it's about telling people that there is sort of more than dhansak. So there's always been a great reception, you know, like people come with a very preconceived notion, like, okay, no, I only want to have dhansak or I only want to have this. And, you know, I always serve them something a little bit extra on the side. So whether it's like daima gosh or like a curry rice, you know, so slowly it's changing their perceptions. So that's always been greeted with a good response. And when it comes to my Parsi customers, of course, they're much more challenging. But then that's where the true test is, right? Like, so if you can get a Parsi to come to a Parsi pop-up and still pay the amount of money, then you're doing something right, and that always happens for me. So I guess we're going on the right track.
Gitika, there's a question from you from Golgappa Girl on Twitter. That's quite an interesting handle. Your cuisine is very unique, and you know, people are not familiar with it. So how difficult or easy is it to get the trust of customers to convince them to come over and try it?
As you know, you are one of the early guests, I would say, would come to my pop-up. First, definitely there was this, I had challenges in getting people overboard, and it is still a little tough because there's a lot of educative or informative information that has to go behind even the existence of the cuisine. Forget the dishes. I mean, first of all, the dish or the cuisine itself has to get some kind of personality. That has happened, took up to a certain level. Now I see there's like no looking back because people are all open to try this.
Absolutely, touch wood. And I mean, even it's so topical that, I mean, even in this weekend there's been so much of newspaper coverage. I think the Mumbai Mirror has done a story on you, and all of you guys have been covered a lot before. And I think that's pioneers a question which people who are following you would like to know, and that's something which that 80s girl has asked on Twitter, is that what are the 3 things to keep in mind before one sets up a pop-up? Anyone wants to take this first? Munaf, you want to?
So I think
yeah, is that Perzen? Yeah, go ahead, then we'll come to you, Munaf. Yeah, Perzen.
So I think one of the key things when you're sort of looking at setting up your own pop-up is to really come up with a menu which you know, like sort of tells a story, or which you are very comfortable with cooking, you know, because obviously you're cooking for a bunch of strangers, and especially if you don't have like sort of like restaurant experience or you know, like professional cooking experience, it's great to sort of be comfortable with what you're cooking. And the other thing, this is just sort of advice that I have a few pop-ups, is to really you know, have your payment gateway and like those kind of like technicalities like set up, because you know, otherwise and this is again from a business point of view, you know, people will always be like, you'll have like 20 people signing up on Facebook, but how many are actually going to come? So I think that process, whatever process you're going to have, that needs to be really like thought through and communicated to your people, communicated to your guests.
Yeah, because you're cooking for so many people and you can't have that wasted. Munaf, you had a point of view on things to keep in mind while setting up a pop-up?
So I actually think there's a secret formula to this entire thing, which honestly shouldn't be that secret. Number one, like I already said, make sure your branding is in place. What does that mean? Create a logo. Okay, take the effort of going on Google and searching for a nice font which represents the food you make.
He works for Google, by the way, so that's an unpaid
that's why I plug it.
Yeah.
All right. Second, invest in photography. Okay, find a nice startup out there, find some intern who's sweet enough to give you below market rates and take professional photos.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. When it comes to food, I think the quality of picture makes a bit different, because the drool value which is associated with that.
What you're doing is you're competing with the perception that a home dining concept is amateurish. Okay, that you're going to someone's house and the mother or the lady of the house will make food for you. That's a very amateur perception. How do you charge 1,500 rupees for that? By introducing branding elements and respecting the customer's perception. And third, finally, and probably the most important, make sure the food is good. Okay, how do you do that? Don't eat the food yourself. You've been eating that for the last 30 years, 40 years, God knows how long. Get other people who are unbiased to eat that food. And then decide if you're ready for a home dining concept.
You know, one thing which also interests me is that all of you have done pop-ups by yourselves, and you've also tied up with associated companies like Trecurious and Meal Tango and so on, who've been doing it. So a question for all of you, or maybe Sneha, you can take this since you've tied up with people. The advantages of doing a pop-up by yourself versus tying up with an agency and doing it.
I think the biggest advantage of tying up with an aggregator is that it makes your life very easy, from coordinating to, you know, getting payment gateways to making sure your Facebook, your Twitter, etc. is flooded. All of that makes it a lot easier to sort of be out there, and also specifically to some of the companies that I work with, because you're not looking at, I mean, at some point you may stagnate and reach a similar set of crowd all the time, whereas this allows you to reach to a bigger audience. It's simply by doing something like this. Like, for example, when you work with the Trecurious markets all your events together. So they are marketing a Perzen, they are marketing a Bohri kitchen, they are marketing a Gitika, they are marketing.
I think that's interesting, Sneha, because sometimes it helps, especially for early starters, till you build your brand, to have some support going with you. So we're going to wind up with one question which has come to you, Sneha, and I think that all of you would also find this very interesting. I'm sure Perzen also gets this a lot in the context of Parsi food also. But this question has come from Nikhila, who's known as Poppaddum on Twitter, to Poppaddum, Sneha. But the question is that South Indian food is very commonly available. So how do you make your pop-up stand out?
Actually, I respectfully disagree. When people think, I mean, South Indian food firstly is a really big genre out there. Specific to Keralite food, there are 3 kinds of sections in Keralite food that we do at Poppaddum, which is your Malabar Muslim meals, your Hindu meals, and your Syrian Christian meals. All of them have a completely different lineage and a genealogy. What holds true for Syrian Christian meals does not hold true for your Sadhyas, does not hold true for your Malabar Muslim meal. Like I said, the idea was to get food from the homes, which is no longer available. Like today, food is fashionable. So it makes sense to be here today, and that sort of helped us all be out there in a much bigger than I would have anticipated. But also there is a lot that we're not aware of. Today, going to an average, why is it that you enjoy food in a friend's house versus a restaurant? Like, why is it always your memory of food is higher at a friend's house, at an in-law's house, at anything versus a restaurant? It is because that food cannot be replicated at a large scale level.
Absolutely, Sneha. In fact, right now, just by talking to Sneha, I learned there are three types of Keralite food, and I've eaten at places like Deluxe and what's the other place in Mahim? But anyway, Sunny and places like this. And the fact is that I didn't know this. And similarly, when I went to Munaf's place and Nafisa auntie cooked for us, I mean, there was so much which one got to know about Bohri food. In Perzen's place, one got to learn that this about the prawn curries and things like that, which are life beyond dhansak. And when you go to Gitika's place, I mean, each time is like a whirlwind experience of new tastes, new flavors, new textures, and there are things which you get to learn also, because I remember there was this time when she did a PowerPoint presentation and then did a Bihu dance for us. So you will not get that in any restaurant in Mumbai and across. And that, folks, is why we need to sort of encourage the home chefs, why we need to see more of them out there, which is why we need to give them our support, and which is why if you are a home chef out there and you feel that your cooking deserves to be heard, your community's cooking deserves to be heard, then just go out and do it, and we'll come to eat. So thank you, and thank you for joining us, and catch you next week at Adda with Kalyan. Thank you.